Hello friends, Ashton here. So it's the weekend, so finally I find some time to release a new video. Okay, so this is going to be a live coding project, and the main issue here we're trying to solve today is basically, uh, I think it's going to be a very common case. Okay, so here, let's say you have a spreadsheet here, but you shared it with somebody like this one here, this cat, and it's going to be so you want to protect this spreadsheet. So, but you want, let me plug my power. So basically, you want the users, you don't want the users to edit manually in this spreadsheet. You want to protect your data, but you want to have an interface for the users to, like a form like this, so they can enter, so they can only enter data with the form. So they cannot edit the spreadsheet. So this is a problem we're going to solve today, okay? So here, since I'm the owner of this project, of this file, so I can edit any content here, right? But the tabs they're protected, and I can basically submit the data from this form. Okay, so as you can see here, it's updated. But for this user, for this cat, so if I go to the same file, right? And right now I log it in with my test account, and I cannot edit this file, right? So as you can see, I cannot edit. But what if I want to enter some record here? What can I do here? Okay, so I think this is going to be the very interesting project here. This kind of problem, I think you will see it in your daily work, I think. So here I have a menu. So as you can see, most of the features are disabled, but because it's shared with this user, so I can still use this form. All right. So I can just add a test email, and let's say this is cat comment. Okay. So I submit. All right. So as you can see, this is the cat comment and created by this test account, and this is timestamp. So everything just works like this. And yes, this is about the problems we are trying to solve today. So if you are interested, you can follow this. I basically separated the project step by step, so you can basically do it. And I show every single step in this video, okay, in just one single video, so you can try to practice and try to improve it, and try to make it suitable or workable for you, okay, in your real project. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first of all, I like to build the API to allow the script to send a HTTP request to protect the spreadsheet or unprotected spreadsheet. So here you can go to the app script. So this right now is a blank file here, and you go to the app script, you're going to open a file like this. So I basically rename it, and also rename this code.js file to API.js file, right, to save some time. So let's start to build the API, and I'd like to use a class to do it. So class API, and let's build our construct function. So for this construct function here, I'd like to use it. So I'd like to use this API only for this spreadsheet. Okay, this active one, and this dot spreadsheet equal to this, not this, spreadsheet app dot get active. So this is going to be a reference to this file, all right. And I'd like to create two functions. So the first one is going to be protect sheets. But this function is going to protect all the tabs. So let's say protect all tabs or sheets in current spreadsheet. So this is the first function I'd like to use, right? I'd like to define here, and another one, so unprotect sheets. And for this function, I'd like to pass basically a list of tab names or sheet names, right? So let's say sheet names, and so here I'd like to protect sheets with given names, and for the sheet name is going to be a string, all right? Say sheet names should be comma separated sheet names. Okay, so these two functions, this one is going to protect our tab, our sheet, and this one is going to unprotect it. And lastly, we need to have a do post function. So you can either use do post or do get. So for this demo, I'd like to use a do post. So we can make a post request to our API to either protect or unprotect the spreadsheet. Okay, so we pass event object parameter here. Let's give some space here. So here we'd like to define some query parameters here, like the action. So the action could be either protect or unprotect. Okay, and we should have another optional parameter called maybe names for sheet names, right? And we should pass it from a query parameter, so we cut it from the parameter. Okay, so this parameter is going to be something like this. So let's say this is your API, and we have the action, like the action equal to something like protect, and names equal to maybe sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. So this protect is going to be the action, and the names, so this is going to be the value for the names. So similar thing like this. Okay, so this is going to be for our API. Okay, we pass some information in this API, and then we know if it's going to be a protect or unprotect. So if there is no action, let's throw an error. Let's say this is invalid call, invalid request, or something like that. So if action equal to protect, what we can do here, we can just return protect, not protect, this protect. So we call this protect function. We'd like to protect all the tabs, right? And if action equal to unprotect, so let's make sure this spell is correct. Unprotect, maybe I'd like to check the names, and names is not equal to empty. Okay, so it's not empty. So if it's this case, we can just remove it, and we have names, right? And we can return this dot unprotect. We pass the names here as the parameter. So this is the call for protect, and this is the call for unprotect. And so if basically the action is not protect or unprotect, it could be I don't know. So the users can basically pass any actions here. So we can throw an error. Let's say new error. invalid action or something like that. Invalid action or invalid request just for invalid request. So basically you can invalid request, invalid request. Okay, make it simple like this. So this is going to be our API. Okay, so and finally we need to create a do post function here. So let's say const, let's do this dot, or let's say this dot app, not app, API equal to new API. Okay, so const do post. So this is going to be a function. We have an event parameter here, so we call API.doPost, pass the parameter here. So this is going to be our function here. So after we have this function, and we can basically deploy it as a web application, so we can make a post request to this endpoint, and then we can either protect or unprotect our spreadsheet. Okay, so we can working on these two functions here to protect or unprotect functions, protect the tabs, okay, in this file. All right, so let's do it. Okay, so the first function here to protect the tabs or sheets, so it's going to be very easy to do. So let's do it. So const sheets equal to this dot spreadsheet. So we're going to get all the these sheets, right? And then we loop all of them. So for each sheet, so what we can do here, let's const protection equal to sheet. I think it's called protect. Okay, so this is going to return a protection object, right? And in this object, what you can do, you can basically remove the editors. So by default, if you share a user with edit access, they should be able to edit your files, right? So this protection, we can keep the edit users, but we just remove it from this tab. So we need to get the editors, of course. So const editors equal to this.access get editors, and we protect it and remove the editors. Okay, remove the editors. So here is going to protect the tab for you, but if you want to add some exceptions here, like for this range, I'd like to basically make it editable. So you can do something here. Make some ranges in the sheet editable. So what you can do here, so protection set unprotected ranges. Okay, so basically here you need to have a list of ranges. Okay, it's going to be an array of range object. Okay, and you pass the ranges here in a list, and then it's going to be unprotected. So I leave it here for you. I'm not going to do that in this demo. Okay, so I basically protect this all the tabs, and I think that's it. So let's try to test it. So to test it, let's make a test function here. Can make a test function, use some space here. So arrow function, let's say API protect, or what, API protect sheet. Okay, so this should protect Okay, for you, if you run this function, it should ask you for the authorization. All right, because I already did that, so it's not. But if I go to the file here, as you can see, they are protected. Okay, so this right now this protect function is working, and we can move to unprotect function. All right, so to unprotect this sheet, so basically here we have a list of not a list of names separated with comma, right? So what I can do here is const names equal to we can do sheet names, just split it with comma, and I'd like to basically try to trim the values, trim the sheet names, right? So let's do a map here for each value there. I'd like to trim it, and finally I'd like to filter the value or the sheet names here, just in case we have empty. In case we have some empty names there, I don't want to have that. Okay, so I think in this case we should have the names for the tabs. So for each of these names, let's loop it, basically loop through it name. So what we can do here, we can get the worksheet, right? Const worksheet equal to this spreadsheet.get sheet by name. We pass a name here. All right, so if this worksheet, like here we have two tabs, right? It should name 1, sheet 2. And what if the users pass some name which is not existed here, right? So that means the worksheet cannot be found, and we basically return here, so we can skip this loop. And if we find this worksheet, what we can do here, we need to protect. I'm sorry, not protect. We need to unprotect this worksheet, right? So to do that, we need to do worksheet dot get protections. Okay, here we get the protection. So here we have two types of protection. Okay, it could be a range protection or a sheet protection. So let's do the sheet first. Spreadsheet dot protection type sheet. And since this is going to be an array, okay, as you can see, get protections. So we need to basically loop it. So for each protection, so protection dot remove it. So in this case, we remove the protection, and we can make a copy of this line, and I'll need to change this sheet to range. So this is going to remove the protections. So we can test here. So make this, comment this out, and we can make an API call with unprotect, and we pass sheet 1. So let's test it. Okay, it's done with no error. So right now sheet 1 is unprotected, but sheet 2 is still protected. And you can try one more test. You pass sheet 1, sheet 2. Let's try. So all of them are unprotected, right? So that means the functionality is working, and what we need to do here, so the only thing we need to do, we can, let me clean this code a little bit. So this is going to be our API, and we have this our do post function here, and I think all of them are ready, and we can just deploy it. So new deployment, and we can make this as a web application. So the description, let's say this is a sheet up protect API. Yeah, make sure this should be you. Okay, should be the owner of the file. And here you need to select anyone and deploy it. And we should be able to get this web app here. This is going to be your endpoint for the API. and you can make a call to this API. All right, so let's copy the URL and make a new file. So let's say this is going to be our app.js. So this is where we use the API. Okay, so let's make so this.config. Let's say this is going to be our API or an API. Okay, let's say this is our API and pass it here. So this is going to be our API, and we can use this API in our project. Okay. To use this API, I'd like to make a simple form. So basically, I'd like to build a sidebar or a pop-up dialog to a very simple form to enter some data to this spreadsheet with this spreadsheet protected. Okay, so that's the idea. But so let's build the form first. So I'd like to create a class here in this app.js here. So let's say this is going to be our app. So I create an app class and constructor function. I'd like to pass the current spreadsheet. So spreadsheet of get active. So you can pass a name here, or if you want to define a name for this application, so you can add a name here in your configuration. And this is going to be, let's say this is live coding 017. So we have a name there. And so basically I'd like to use a sidebar this time. Okay, so use a sidebar. What we can do here, let's say show. You can show sidebar or show form, something like that. So this is going to be our function to show this form. Let's say this.app underscore app equal to new app, and we should have a function called show form. And this is going to be an error function, and app underscore app dot show form. Show, no, I did something wrong here. The API, I should use app. Okay, dot show form. So this is going to be our function to show the form, right? And I'd like to, so let's do it. So for this form, it's going to be, we need to have a HTML template here. So let's say const template equal to HTML service dot create template from a file. So this file is not yet created. Let's say this is form.html. Okay, so let's build this file. Form. So this is going to be our form. Let's say this is going to be our form here. So this is a p tag. This is a p tag. Okay, so this dot spreadsheet dot show. So if you use this function, it's going to show you a dialog. Okay, it's going to be a pop-up like this. And if you want to use sidebar, you need something else. So const UI is equal to spreadsheet dot get UI. So we get the UI and UI dot show, not show dialog. You can also show dialog, but you can show a sidebar. So this sidebar is going to take a user interface object. So let's say this is going to be our HTML object. So const HTML equal to template evaluate, and then you can set a title for it. So this is going to be our title, and we define this title. Let's say const title equal to. So let's say like the name here. So this name, not this name, config.name, right? And let's say a demo form. So this is going to be our title. And what we can do here, we can try to run this function to show our sidebar. And let's do the authorization. Okay. No issue. So sidebar is open. And I should have a value here. No. Form. Cannot see it. Okay, I have this form. So right now we have this sidebar. So I'd like to create this form, and we can make a request and save the value here. Okay. So to build the form, you can use HTML, JavaScript, and what the heck is that? So HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. Okay. So to make it easier to build, I'd like to use Bootstrap. So you can use any other CSS libraries like this. Okay. So get started. I think it's download. So I'd like to make a copy of these links and go to our file, add it here. Let's format it. Okay, so it's going to be very easy. It's a very simple form. Okay, not easy. So I'd like to add a class here. For this body, I'd like to add a padding 3. Okay, padding 3 should be fine. And I'd like to create a form here. So this is going to be a form. I'd like to make maybe just a 2 column here. Okay, just make maybe name, email, something like that. So what we can do here, I make a form here, form control. Okay, so this is pretty good. I just make a copy of this code, so save some time. So let's say this is going to be our email. So email address, or this is going to be our comment, or something like that. So for email, change this ID to email, and placeholder. If you want, you can add a placeholder there, and you can make it required if you like. You can then put, so this is for comments. So the ID changes to comments, and row 3 should be fine. Okay, so I think I can also make it required, maybe not. So, and finally, I'd like to add a button to this form, right? So where can I find a button here? Overview. Okay, so use this one. Let's grab this button and put it here. So I'd like to wrap it in a div. Make a copy of this end tag for the div. So the type is submit. BTN primary going to change the color to primary color. Alright, so everything I think should looks like. So let me check. If I try to run this function called show the form, what do we get here? Okay, email, right, and comments, and we can submit. So here we have the data I'd like to, so let's say this is going to be responses. So I'd like to grab this name and save it here. So should name responses. Okay, so right now we have this form, but we don't have functions here. So you basically need to submit, right? You need to handle this function here, handle the form submission, right? So what we can do here, we need to have a script here to handle the request. So in this script, I'd like to define a form. So let form equal to null or something like that. So if, not if, so window on load. So after our page is loaded, I'd like to call a function here. So form equal to document forms, the first one, because we only have one form here, so it's going to be the first one, right? And I'd like to add a event listener to this form. Okay, so add event listener. I always spell this wrong. Add event listener. So the event should be submit, and the function to be called is also called submit. So you can use any name you like. So this is going to, or I'd like to have so keep it simple like this. And we need to create this submit function, right? So function, I need some space here. So submit is going to take event object submit, and we need to prevent the default action for this form. So you prevent default. If you didn't add this prevent default function here, your form is going to act very weird like this. So if I click on this one, so add something here, so invalid email. Okay, nothing happens here. That's weird. Let me check if anything. Okay, window. So basically, it's not working like this. So this is like something like weird message. Maybe it's because it's a sandbox. So, all right, it's not. It shouldn't navigate to another page, right? But this is sidebar, so it's act like weird, right? So add it here, and what we can do here, we need to get the value from the form, right? We need to get the email and the comment. So let's do it. Const. Maybe this is a payload for our data. So email equal to form email dot value, and comments should be form dot email, not email, comments dot value. So we can do it like this way. I think it's because we have the ID here, right? And the email at the ID, and this is the ID. So we can basically log this out. Console.log the payload. So before we send this data back to our backend, so we basically try to verify it first. Let me open this sidebar again. Okay, let's bring so let's do some comments here. So as you can see here in the console, we have the comments and we have the email, right? So everything looks fine, and we should be able to handle this request. So here we need to make a API call. So we use google.script.run. So after this run, we should run a function. So let's say submit. So this submit function is it should be defined at our backend in this app file. So and we pass the payload here. So for better practice, we usually stringify it because right now it's object. String in find this object. So payload. Okay, so we need to define this function here in our app here. So let's say we have a submit function, we have the payload. So here we need to basically parse the payload parse payload, because it's stream file, right? And here we need to define this function called const, not console, const submit. So this is going to be this is a function to be called from our front end here. Okay, the submit function. I know it's confusing right now because here we have a not here. Here we have function submit, and here we have another function submit. Yes, it's just like that. Confusing, but you can rename it a better name. All right. So submit. So we basically have an error function here. We have the payload, right, from the front end, and we basically call this app.submit, and we pass the payload, and this should do it. All right, so here, this payload, after we have this payload, what we can do here, I'd like to add so our data should be like a timestamp, and we have the email, right, and we have anything else like email comments. Maybe I'd like to add the user or created by. So this is going to be our data record, right? We have timestamp, email, comments, and created by. So this created by should be added automatically. So I'd like to get the active user. So this dot user equal to, I think it's called session dot get active user and get email. And what we can do here, const values equal to. So the first one is going to be a new date for the timestamp, and we should have a payload dot email and a payload dot comments. So this both values from the form, right? And the last one should be this dot user. Okay, just like this. So now we have the values. What we can do here, we can do const worksheet equal to this dot this ss.get sheet by name. So the name will be configuration, sheet name, responses, and just in case we don't have this tab created, so we can do here this dot insert sheet by name. So name going to be config dot sheet name dot responses. So this is going to make sure if this tab is not found right here, so I'm going to create it automatically for you. So after we have this worksheet, so let's get the last row. Const last row equal to worksheet get last row. So we need to check if last row is equal to 0. I think I don't want to do that, so I want to override its header every time, just in case, someone manually changed something like that. So I'd like to define headers here. So let's say header form. So this is the header for the form, right? So we have the time stamp and email, and what else? Comments and created by. Okay, so this is going to be our header. I don't need to have this last row. I need it, but not here. So what we can do here, we can do worksheet.getRange. So the header is always at the first row, right? First column, number of rows 1, number of columns is going to be configuration, header, form header, dot length, and I'm going to set the values for the headers and put it in array, configuration, header, form. Okay, so this is going to reset the header every time, and then we get the last row, and worksheet get range again, and the last row plus 1. So last row. So right now last row is 1, right? We need to enter the data here, so plus 1, so that means 2. In this example, column start from first column, and the number of rows is going to be 1, and the number of columns is going to be our values dot length, and we set values. Also, it should be array in array, two-dimensional array. Okay, so this is going to set worksheet. Yes, we set the value. So we can test this function right now. I think I don't need to reload. Not working. So reopen it maybe. We will show form. Okay. Because we are trying to edit our spreadsheet file. So new scope. Allow. This should do. So show form, and we can try to run some tests. So email, comments, submit. Okay, so as you can see, submit again just to verify it. It's working, right? So, and we can improve this a little bit just in case we have some error. Okay, so I'd like to use form, maybe components, use alert. Okay, so let's get alert. Let's make a copy of this alert and put it here at the top above the form. Right. So I'd like to say this is going to be our alert. So give it an ID of alert. Okay. Alert secondary. So I'd like to make a function to show the alert, right? So by default, I think I can add a class of alert dnone, not sure. So I think dnone make it invisible. So let's create a function to do that, to show it our function show alert. So let's say const alert equal to document get element by ID. So the ID is alert, and let's say this is going to have some message here, right? So alert dot inner HTML equal to message, and alert class list remove. What should I remove? Dnone. And we should have a function to hide alert or close alert. So in this function, let's make a copy of this, and we can add the dnone. Not sure if this is going to work, so let's try it. And here, in this submit function here, we basically send a request to our backend. So if an error, you can use with failure handler. So if it fails, right? So what we can do here, we can show alert and error message, and with success handler. handler is correct. So what we can do here, we can basically send a show alert done for success, something like that. So maybe I'd like to pick our primary, so alert primary. So you can change the color, of course. So let's pass another parameter. Say this is going to be our success, and show errors is going to be our danger. So what I mean here, this is about danger alert, and this is going to be success alert. So we're going to have a class alert dash primary or alert success, alert danger, something like that. So we pass this as a parameter. So show alert message, and this is going to be our type. So show and alert class list add. What do we add here? We need to add a type here. So alert dash type. Okay, I think that's it. So we can have a different. So by default, let's change to primary. Okay, so let's check if this is working. I need to reload the sidebar. Show the form. So add email, some comments, submit. Okay, so success. So that means it's working. And if an error is going to show you an error message. And so every time when we try to submit, right, I'd like to close the sidebar. So you can close it and hide. So you can try to hide sidebar. So every time I try to submit, I'd like to hide the alert. Okay, I think that's it for this form. So right now this form is working. So if I shared this with another user, so my test account, so let me open since this is shared with my test account, so if I in my test account, I'm able to edit this file, as you can see. So right now the protection is not added. So here I as a editor, I have access to this spreadsheet, right? So let me check why I cannot see the menus here. So reload it. So our final step, I'm going to add some protections so the editors cannot edit directly in our spreadsheet, and only the owner can do that, but the users can update the form, right? They can use their form to enter the data, so something like that. Okay, so before we add the protection to the whole project, I'd like to create a menu here so the other users can use this menu to open this form, right? Because right now, if I go to my test account here, I don't have a menu, so I cannot open the sidebar here. So let's do it in our script. Go to the apps file, app.js file. So show sidebar. Let's create a open function here. Take an event object, and let's say const UI. Let's have some space here. So UI is going to be spreadsheet.getUI, and const menu let's create the menu with the name of the app. So config. So what is this linear config name, and the menu add item. So here we only have one. So open form. Okay. So the function is going to be show form. Okay, it's weird. Open form, show form, and menu add to UI, add to UI. Okay, so this is going to be our open function. So add it here. On open, take a event object, app on open event object. So if I try to run this on open function, we should have the menu, and we can open form. So if I go to my test file and not the test file, just a different user, not sure if I can get the menu created successfully. It's loading. Okay, so we have the menu, and we can basically, so since it's the first time for this test account, we need to do the authorization, and every time. So this is the owner, and this is the user, right? And right now it's a user. Okay, so it's done, and we can open the sidebar, I think. So this is another user. So you will see it here in the created by. So this is from my test account. Test, submit. So see here, created by this test account. So right now it's working fine, but I can edit, right? I can edit any cell I like. So I'd like to protect the tab or the file, and so to protect it, what we can do here, let's go to the apps, this app class. I like to call a function called request. So basically we need to send a request to this API, right? So request, so we need to have action, right? And the sheet names. So our endpoint URL is going to be something like this. Configuration API, and question mark action, it should be the action, and sheet, not sheet name, names equal to. So this is going to be, we can use it as separated values, something like that. So okay, so let's just pass the names here, or names.join with comma. So we pass an array here for the names, right? So this is going to be our query, or the API, the query to our API. Okay, we have action, names, so it should be good. And we need to const response, or we can basically send a request. So the URL, and we have some parameters or options here. What kind of options we need to pass here? Because we are in our API, this is the post, handle the post request, right? So here, this is going to be object, and the method is going to be post or post, and we don't have any payload. I think should be fine. Post should be fine. Maybe I'd like to add. No. I think this is that's it. We basically send a post request, and if there is no error, should be good. And we basically make a request like this to protect or unprotect the tabs. So let's create another function called protect sheets. So this one is a little bit different from this in this API, right? So here we send a request to this request. We basically use this request function to send a request to our API. So if this is protect, what we do here is this request. So the action is going to be, so let's say const action is going to be protect. And we don't have string names, right? Protect. So by default, this is going to be empty array. So we can pass request actions, not actions, action. So this is going to be our protect sheets function, and unprotect. We have the names here, and we pass the names here, and the action is going to be unprotect. So in this case, we can protect and unprotect our tab. So let's try to test it here. So const test function is going to be for a function here. So let's say app.protect, and let's test it. All right. Because we added a URL fetch API, so that's why we're doing this again. I hope no error. Okay, so it's protected. And let's try to use the unprotect. And let's only want to unprotect configuration. This should be an array. Okay, so configuration.shipName.response, because our form only wants to write data to this tab, right? So I only want to unprotect this one. So let's try to test it. Okay, it's unprotected. So this is now working fine. So what we can do here in our code. So here is the final part, I think, and the most concept. So every time we are here want to submit in our submit function, right? We have the data, and we want to write the data to our spreadsheet. And if the tab is protected, only the owner can write the data to this tab, and the users, like this one, is just basically not the owner of the file. If the spreadsheet is protected, the users cannot write data to it. So before we write data to our spreadsheet, what we can do here, we can basically unprotect it. So the name is going to be configuration sheet name responses. So if you want to write multiple spreadsheets, you need to basically unprotect all of them, and then after all of these actions, we need to protect it again. So after we write the data to, so add a header, write the values to the spreadsheet, and we protect it. But I think I need to do something here. I need to flash the status, okay, after the unprotect and after the protect. All right, I hope this can work. So if I try to test again, So after the submission, I should have this tab protected. This is a new test. Submit. So you see here is now protected. So because I'm the owner of the file, so I still can edit this file. But if I go to my test account, and if I reload the page, as you can see, I am not able to basically edit this file now. It's protected. As you can see, this formatting is disabled, but I have access to this form, right? And I need to do the authorization again because we add some new APIs. And now, okay, so I cannot change anything here, right? I cannot change anything here, but I can use this form to enter the data. So that's the magic. Let's say test@gmail.com. This is a test from the form. Okay, let's try to submit. As you can see, it's unlocked. And after, okay, you are trying to edit a protect cell. Okay, that's the issue here. It's unprotected. Spreadsheet flash, unprotected. That's weird. I think it should work like this. Let me try it again. Flush and reset. Okay. Not sure if I added the wrong place. Protect, unprotect, flush. So let's do it again. Success with the error message. That's weird. But as you can see, the value is added. So this is the test form for message, right? So let's say this is let's put my name here, just in case it's working. Okay, so I think just the issue here, but as you can see here, it's working now. I can basically enter data to this form, right? But I cannot edit it, edit the data here after I edit. Basically, use it. So the only access here I can use is this form, right? And I don't have access to other data. So yes, that's the main purpose of this project. And if you can, I think this can be used in a lot of scenarios in Google Sheet. So this is just a very quick demo, but the core part here is this API, okay? So you can use this anywhere you like, and then you can build the functionalities here. Like this example, I have this app class, and I have a simple form to do the data, and then you can make more forms, like you can basically make forms like edit the item. So basically a crowd application you can do, right? You can insert new items here. Because I think for some of the people they just like using the spreadsheet in this way, okay? So they can see the data and they can see this form here, but they don't want the users have access to manipulate the data after the submission, something like that. So yes, I think that's it for this project, and it's going to be a long one, but I basically went through every step here to cover as much as possible here. So if you can follow this video step by step, So eventually you're going to learn something here. Okay, as you can see, we have some front end, some back end, and some API stuff here. This covers a lot. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. Thank you.
But all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays.